Once again, thank you for joining everybody. As I said, my name is Teniola Zara King, and I'm going to be doing this presentation on From Script to Screen. So, I went to the University of Liverpool. I studied economics before becoming a filmmaker, and then I quickly went on to be a producer in Nigeria. I've done a few short films, Giddy High Life and Teddy's Tale most recently, and currently I am working on 2 TV pilots, for one for Sky and another for 11 Productions. So let's get straight into it. I'm always conscious of being on the clock because I'm like, okay, I like to talk, but at the same time, we've only got 20 minutes, so I need to be as quick as possible. So, from script to screen. There are 5 stages of films, and what's very important is that people usually don't understand that with these 5 stages of films, most people only get to the development stage, and they usually don't get into pre-production, production, post-production, and distribution because they fail at the development stage. So I'm here to speak to you about all these 5 different stages. I'm going to focus a lot on development because once you can get through that particular stage of production, then you're probably likely to go on to the other stages. Okay, so development. In development, you have 3 things that you need to focus on. You have the story, you have the pitch, and you have funding, which is where you get your green light, meaning that you can actually go on to make your amazing film or your amazing documentary. A story. As the definition here says, a story is a depiction of a journey. In a story, we follow a character or a series of characters as they pursue a goal and come against certain obstacles. For every story, you need to answer 5 questions. Who are they? Where are they? What do they want? Why do they want it? And will they get what they want? The amazing speaker before me, Dr. Collins, already spoke about storytelling in general, so I'm not going to focus too much on it, but there are a few points I would like to make with regards to story in general. So there's a cliche in film that says story is king. I like to say cliches are there for a reason because it's true. For any film that you want to make, any documentary that you would like to make, you need to ensure that at the heart of it is a compelling story that you're trying to tell. People think that with good production value, with good cameras, lighting, sound, with all the best gear in the world, with the best crew and cast, that you can have an amazing film or an amazing documentary. But ultimately, at the core of it is to ensure that you have a very, very good story. Because once you have a good story, then every other part of the production process will hopefully go smoothly, but they'll be enhanced because you have a good story. Whereas if you have everything else in place and the story isn't good, nobody's really going to care, or nobody's going to remember, or it's not going to be a story that lasts the test of time. So story is king. If there's anything I want you to take away from this particular presentation, is the fact that story is king. So how to develop your ideas? Ideas can come from anywhere. You have your personal ideas. Ideas can come from dreams. Ideas can come from books, from concepts, from speaking to people. There's so many different ways you can get a story. But as I said before, once you do get your story, just remember that the story and developing that story is the most important part of getting your story from the script to the screen. So, as Dr. Collins also said, there is a craft to storytelling. I'm not going to go into the logistics of it. If you want to take a screen grab, do take a screen grab because this is a particular structure I like to use. There are different structures, but I'm not going to go into depth because of time. One thing I will say is this. When it comes to storytelling, there's a craft to storytelling. Many people think that because they love films and because they love documentaries, that means by default they can tell a film. But the truth of the matter is, for example, I love music. I don't know about the people listening, but I love music. I love Afrobeats. But if you put a piano before me and I don't know how to play a piano, I'm ultimately going to play rubbish because I haven't learned the craft and the skills of how to play a piano. And it's the same thing with storytelling. You must know how to tell a story. And each story that you see, or the amazing stories that win awards, are stories that followed a particular arc, from the exposition to the inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and to the denouement. That word always trips me up. But by following an arc in your story, you can ensure that you're taking your audience on a journey with their characters that they can understand. So please do make sure that every time you are telling a story, that you follow and respect the craft of telling the story. People say rules are there to be broken, which sometimes they are, but you do need to understand the rules first before you break them. Okay, so last thing I'll say on story for now is these are 2 books I would definitely recommend you should read if you're trying to get into story and storytelling. One is Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Another is Robert McKee's Story. Save the Cat is a more concise book. So if you do like it, if you don't like reading, which you should, but if you don't, it's that I think only like 200 pages, so you can go into that. Robert McKee's Story has a lot more in-depth breakdowns of storytelling in general. So I would strongly recommend that you read both these books. All right, so you've gotten your story done, you've gotten your ideas, you've read the books, you've done all the crafts, you've literally gotten your story to a team. The next thing you need to do is to pitch your story. One thing I will focus on with regards to the pitch, as I said, I don't have that much time, so I'm going to focus on one thing, which is the log line. Now, what is a log line? A log line is basically a summary of your whole story. People hear of the elevator pitch, which is when you get into an elevator, you see someone that you want to pitch to, and you quickly pitch that person. One thing you can use to do that is your log line. I'll give you an example of a log line that I love. Many people have watched Game of Thrones. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones, I would strongly recommend that you go and watch Game of Thrones because it is literally TV at its best and storytelling at its best. So the log line for Game of Thrones is this. In the mythical land of Westeros, 7 noble families fight for control of the Iron Throne, while an ancient enemy returns after being dormant for thousands of years. Now, if anyone that has watched Game of Thrones here, you would realize that the 8 seasons of Game of Thrones respect this log line. And the purpose of having a log line is to ensure that you're able to summarize your film into one sentence that anybody you pitch that log line to can understand exactly what you're talking about. Another example I'll give is my film. My film is called Teji's Tale. If you haven't watched it, check it out on YouTube. But my log line is this. Set in the 1950s, Teji relocates to London from Lagos to study, but she faces challenges adapting when her colleagues demand to see her tale. Now you can see in brackets I've put time, who, where, want, and the obstacles. Going back to story, I spoke about how stories, you're asking the 5 Qs, who are they, what do they want, why do they want it, will they get it, and what's stopping them from getting it. In your log line, you must ensure that you answer those questions as easily as possible and as quickly as possible. So next on the agenda of writing a pitch, you should also have a treatment. So let's say you've been able to pitch your elevator pitch to somebody and they're like, okay, let me see a treatment about the story you want to tell. In your pitch, you need various things from your genre to your target audience. So genre being, is it rom-com? Is it drama? Is it horror? Is it thriller? I personally don't like horror, but if you do like horror, why not? Next is your target audience. Who is the film for? Is it for family? Is it for 18 plus? Like, who is your target audience for your film? Next, you have your synopsis, which is basically just a summary about what your story is about. Main characters, all the different characters you have that will make your story, the main characters that will propel your story forward. Try and make it as concise as possible. One thing with regards to treatments is you shouldn't make them too long because unfortunately in this TikTok and Instagram age, you have people that aren't used to paying too much attention to things. So the more you can simplify your treatments, the more likely it is for people to want to actually read it and listen to it. Read it more like and listen to your pitch. You also have your themes. So what themes are is your story going to explore? Is it themes of love, themes of death? Is it justice? Is it crime? Is it man against nature? All these different films that you watch and documentaries that you watch, when you look at them, all of them have a central theme that they're trying to explore. So part of your treatment is to show people, okay, this is the theme and this is why we're telling this story. Also, you need your film elements, so cinematography, sound, production design, costume, maybe makeup, depending on the type of film you're telling. Just make sure you can basically paint a visual picture of what your film is going to be about and let people know that this is why they should want to see this film made. And lastly, but most importantly, why this story? People want to know why they should be interested in the story. People want to know why they should give you their money to do this film. People want to know why you should be the person to tell that story. Why can't it be anybody else? So once you have all these different things on lock, then you're ready to pitch and you're ready to go to the next stage. So you've gotten your treatment done, you've gotten your story done, and now you're going to go to the actual pitch where you're going to pitch your film to people. In this day and age, you have various ways to pitch to people. Sometimes you're called in to pitch physically. Sometimes it's going to be on Zoom. Other times it might just be the treatment to tell that person. Whatever it is, your pitch is very, very key because this is when you can, as I say in Nigeria, sell your market. So things to do before a pitch: rehearse with your friend, Let them ask you questions, go over it a few times. Relax. It's life. Don't worry, it's just film. So relax, take your time with it. Be confident but friendly. People like to work with people that they like. So please do make sure you smile, have a big smile on your face, and ensure that you enjoy yourself. Most importantly, you need to know your work. It's amazing how many people go into a room and they don't know the ins and outs of what they're trying to do. So whenever you're going into the pitch, you must know all the questions. Like, think of any question they could possibly ask you and go for it. And lastly, but most importantly, no isn't forever. People like to think that when they get to know, that means the idea is terrible. Sometimes, yes, maybe you might need to go back to the drawing board and look at it again and try and make it better. Or sometimes it's just not for that person, and that's fine. And there's a quote I like to quote quite a few times by Letitia Wright, and she says, "If it's for me, it won't pass me by, and if it passes me by, then it's not for me." So by default, not everything is for everybody. But when you find that person that loves your story, you've done the good treatment, you've done the good pitch, and they like it, then you get a yes someday. All right, next, funding. So this is all development, as I said. And the reason why I'm really breaking down development is because in the development process, once you can get this done and you get the money, then you're good to go. Most people, most filmmakers especially, we can't get our stories done. We can't get our stories from our heads to the screens because of money. But once you do get the funding, then you're good to go, as I said. So funding. The different ways you can get funding, personal funding. I personally don't like to do personal funding because it's your money, but if you have enough money, then please do go ahead and personally fund your film. You have crowdfunding. I'm going to dig into that a bit deeper because crowdfunding is a way that a lot of people do get their films funded. I did a film called Giddy High Life quite a few years ago now, and I was able to raise nearly £9,000. And that was through just literally my pitch and my treatment and telling people why this is an important story that needs to be told. So crowdfunding is something people use a lot. Apart from crowdfunding, you have film funds. A lot of people aren't aware that there's so many film funds online that you can apply to fund your film. But you just need to do the search. You just need to do the research. You need to take out time to see the particular funds that may pertain to the type of story you're trying to tell. And as I said before, make sure your pitch, make sure your treatment is top notch. Make sure you don't give them any reason to say no to you. And even if they say no, there's always another opportunity around the corner, so don't lose hope. And lastly, production companies. So the truth of the production companies is they are always looking for some new stories, they're always looking for new documentaries, they're always looking for the next TV series. Unfortunately, most of them won't talk to you because of agents, but then I am a master in literally cold emailing people and getting things done. So there's no harm in approaching people. As they always say, the answer will always be no if you don't ask. So why not ask? Why not send that email, send that treatment, and see what people might have to say about that. Okay, so development is done now. The next stage of film is pre-production. I'm going to break that down very, very quickly because time is ticking very quickly. So we have cast and crew, location scouting. This is when you go out to find out where you want to shoot your film. We have the rehearsals that you do with your cast and crew, and you have equipment finalizing where you get all the different equipment that you want to use for your film. I'm going to break down cast and crew because those are two very, very, very key elements that all the other elements kind of fall under. So cast and crew. You have your cast. You have lead actors, supporting actors, stuntsmen, extras. Everybody that is a cast member is somebody that you see on screen itself. For crew, you have the executive producers, as my Nigerians would say, they're guys at the tops. These are the people that have the money, that will give you the money. You have producers, you have writer directors, which I am. You have so many different people. I won't go into all of them. But the main thing I do want to say about choosing your cast and crew is that you should choose people that are at the top of their game, obviously according to the budget that you have. But apart from choosing people that have amazing skill, it's very important that you choose people that have good character. Now, depending on the project, let's say, for example, you're doing a short film, there's a shorter amount of time that you'll need to spend with that person. But let's say, for example, you're doing a documentary for a year or 2 years, or you're doing like a TV series that will last for like quite a few years. You kind of need to like the people that you work with to an extent. And character is something that will draw you to the person or not. So even when you're casting people, like there's a lot of skill everywhere, but it's character that's very, very important to pay attention to when you're trying to hire a casting crew. And even if you are the person being hired, people have been hired because they have a good smile. I literally hired someone the other day for a job I did because somebody else recommended him and said, oh, he always has a smile on set. So just ensure that no matter what stage of the production process you're at, that your character shines through, because there's so many people that have skill, but not a lot of people have the character to carry out those skills. All right. Next, we have production itself. This is finally when we're on set. We're having fun. We're shooting the film. You can either shoot on sets, which are built sets in stages, or you can shoot on location, which is actual houses or wherever the location is for the particular scripts. And I added problem solving. Now, anybody that has ever been on set before, done a film or a documentary, will know that problems will always arise. I remember I was on set for my short film, and literally in the middle of the day, the fire alarm just went off, and nobody knew how to put it off. The fire alarm turned on, and nobody had to put it off. And it took a whole hour of our day, and we just had to find ways around it. Okay, should we do lunch now? Should we do rehearsals now? Should we do this or that? So just expect to have problems on sets. Obviously, people pray and say, oh my God's grace, we won't have problems, but it's just part of set life. So just always be prepared for those, but don't let them get you down. Just put your head down, think of solutions, and just keep it moving, because at the end of the day, the film will get done. You just have to overcome some obstacles. All right. Next part of film production is post-production. Trying to really speed up because we only got 3 minutes left according to my time. So post-production, I'm not going to go into the details of this because it's quite self-explanatory. You have editing, which is the process of bringing the film together. You have visual effects, which is all the nice, amazing stuff they add. Look at Avengers and other things like that, Game of Thrones. Sound design and final mix. I will pick on sound design. Sound design is usually not really focused on in film because people usually look at the visuals and the angles and the lightings and the camera and this. But sound design can really elevate your film if you pay attention to it. So if you are going into film, do make sure that you pay particular attention to it. And lastly, we have color grading. Color grading is basically how you create moods with color and how you enhance the story with color. One very popular example of this is The Matrix. When you watch The Matrix, you see that there's a lot of green in The Matrix because they're trying to show that whole technology side and like the coding side of The Matrix. If I'm watching Matrix, please go and watch Matrix. And lastly, we have stages of filmmaking. We have distribution. So you finally shot your film, you've got the money, everything's good, you've edited it, everyone's happy with it. And now you need to distribute your film. The different things you have for distribution, first of all, you need a press kit. So a press kit is basically when you break down all the different things that you need that show what your film is about. In particular, you have a poster, you have your short and long synopsis, which is the summary of the film, who the cast and crew is, technical specifications, film stills, etc. So this is a press kit I did for my short film, Teddy's Tale. I'm not going to go into the details of it because there's no time anymore, sadly. But just glancing through, you can see this is the cast that was part of Teddy's Tale. And you can also see these are the technical specifications for Teddy's Tale alongside film stills. Distribution, you also have festivals. So Film Freeway is an amazing tool that you can apply to so many different film festivals at once. But it's very essential that you know that they're very expensive. So only apply to film festivals that are specific to your film, and also try and apply for the ones you can actually physically attend, because it's when you go to those film festivals that people can meet you in person and hopefully offer you other opportunities to do your films. And hopefully you can get an award too. You can also have personal distribution, where you put on YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, Twitter. There's so many different platforms now that you can share your work. You have film communities. Here in England, we have Bounce and other things like this. But wherever you are in the world, look into the film communities that you have and try and share there. And lastly, you have private screenings as well. So even if you can't get into any particular platforms, you could do a private screening where you invite your friends and family to come and watch, and people that may be interested in your film. Last but not least, from getting your script to the screen, you have online streaming platforms. You have short film platforms. Here in the UK, we have Short of the Week, actually global. You have MIM and other platforms. As I said before, do look at your community and see which platforms that are there and apply to those. So let them know that you have a film that you want to distribute on. And the bigger boys, we have the Netflixes, Amazons, Apple TVs, and all those. I know you can pay to put some of your films on this. Also, other way around. They will pay to put your films on those platforms, but the specific procedures you must go through to get to that stage in particular. And yeah, that is it for script to screen. So I'm going to just leave you with this quote. And it says, the beauty of film is that it has the ability to transport you from the comfort of your seat to another time, place, or human experience. For a moment, even though it's a brief one, you get to see the world from someone else's perspective. And that is it from me. Got there in the end. Thank you.